Sakai Malad, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix. Papou a wete ba moun plen la yon manj a kite la vi. Apresiye sa yo ka fe kon yo a pa mi nou jodi. La te mouve vale pie non nou ka konstipe moun ebi. Pour nous connaître, pour nous fait pour nous tout ça bénéfice. For only wonders you done for us all, spreading the culture all over the world. For only good thing that you done for God, that's what it is.
Bonjour pour tout le monde qui a écouté nous en présence, c'est un grand plaisir comme ici. Nous disons bienvenue. On t'y l'applique à Fifile à Villa, à Casvité. Ça qui est, fait c'est mon la jardin à la campagne qui fait plus content. Il était chaud, il était sèche. Mais c'est vraiment un grand plaisir pour nous là, d'accord? Nous avons un grand invité, un capitaine, un monde qui a fait bateau, tout ça, il est technicien, un mécanicien, go frère, go dominicain à Casano, Jordan là. We just want to say good morning to you wherever you are. The long anticipated, long awaited discussion, interview with Mr. Neville Wade, the famous sea captain from Dominica. And by the way, our producer for this particular program is Gabriel Christian. We spoke several times about this particular interview. As a matter of fact, he was the one that really enticed me to make sure that we get this particular interview going. So big up to Gabriel Christian in the US of A. And we are here with the kind compliments of Digicel. Let's say good morning to the man of the moment. Good morning to you, Mr. Neville Wade. Good morning. Bonjour, ça va fait?
Good morning, bonjour, ça bien. Nous allons commencer par là.
Ah ben, tout j'ai connais.
Avec, on va remercier bon Dieu qui m'a demandé là 4 heures pour préparer, pour venir aux eaux. Nous conduire jusqu'à aux eaux. Toi, tu n'as pas un problème. Alors, nous allons bon Dieu, bon, nous remercie pour mener nous en paix avec un seul morceau.
Absolument. Ça va faire plaisir là. But Mr. Wade, I mean, take us back as far as your memory would allow you to your early days, to even include your parents.
Yeah. OK, avant de faire ça quand même, mon quand même remercier bon Dieu, puisque nous pas savons ça qu'a fait aujourd'hui, nous pas savons ça qu'a fait demain.
D'accord.
Mais nous savons nous là. So, moi c'était un chantier parce que papa moi était qu'à chanter en l'eau. Ouais, et ben mon t'ai besoin chanter quand même un peu pas. OK. I don't know about tomorrow. I just live from day to day. I don't borrow from its sunshine, for its skies may turn to gray. I don't worry o'er the future, for I know what Jesus said, and today I'll walk beside him, for he knows what is ahead. Many things about tomorrow I don't seem to understand, but I know who holds tomorrow, and I know who holds my hand. Every step is getting brighter as the golden stairs I climb. Every burden's getting lighter. Every cloud is silver-lined. There's a sun is always shining. There no tear will dim the eye. And the ending of the rainbow, where the mountains touch the sky. Many things about tomorrow I don't seem to understand, but I know who holds tomorrow, and I know who holds my hand.
Amen.
And listeners, I would like this interview in which I am now occupied to be one of the best interviews. So we have to start from a state of spiritual composure. I am Neville Wade, the captain, all that came afterwards. And anything I say here, I don't want to take all the praise for what I'll be saying, but maybe 80% of the praise goes to Bernard Avril, Dominican captain, extremely intellectual. He passed away a few years ago. Cyril Hyacinth and Lagon, who is almost laid aside because he had a bad stroke, triple bypass, and there is swelling in his legs. But we were the three musketeers at that time where the sea work was concerned. So here we go. Neville Wade. What I can remember, maybe I was about 3 years old, and that started in Woodford Hill. In Woodford Hill, when you're walking from Palm Tree going up, before you meet the Tree Road, where there is a small car park or bus stop, to turn either to go back down to the other Woodford Hill by Black Stanley. Of course, what I'm saying is for old people, because maybe the young people don't even know about Black Stanley. Black Stanley was one of the oldest drivers. There were 2 trucks doing the route from Marigot to Portsmouth in the 1950s, and it was Black Stanley and Warrington Boboy from North End Marigot. So that portion of land I passed in Woodford Hill around 4 years ago, and it was still empty, just to the right there, and it had belonged to a man called Descartier. That is where my parents lived when I could realize life. And I could see my father coming in with some pieces of galvanized and old tins to clean them up and put them over in the yard there. And of course, I didn't know what that was all about. And my mom was there. I may have forgotten this little line. My mom was the first Robin from Wesley. She was called Isabella Ann, and there was one other Robin her age who passed away long ago. It is said that he and his father dug a jet in Wesley, and the wife told him, "No, you have to cover it up. Steady, you have to cover it up." And the boy went to cover it up, and he died.
Wow.
So both of them died. But that was my mom, and that's my mom's location. The Robin family is one of the biggest families in Wesley, and they have taken over Toronto, Canada. There are thousands of them there because there were 13 Robins. Each Robin has around 13 children, and those 13 have 13. So it's 3 or 4 generations of Robins over there. And if you go there, you'll meet them in all aspects of Canadian life. So back to Dominica. So my grandfather and my grandmother was Matilda Phillip, another huge family in Wesley. So all the Phillips, the Dodds, the Robins, the Telemacs are related to us on my mother's side. So we go now back to Woodford Hill, and my father is bringing these pieces of tin in the yard, and I'm wondering what that is for. Then a few weeks I saw him bringing a few pieces of bicycle parts. So he was building a bicycle. I wonder, what he's going to do. Well, I didn't know what a bicycle was. I wonder what was that. Anyway, he did a bicycle, and what I can remember is a bicycle bricks used to be some blocks of rubber, but he made it with bullet wood. I must have asked him sometime later, and he explained that to me, because he told me everything he did, and that is probably where I learned to build something out of nothing, to do something out of rubbish. All the rubbish people throw away can be recycled into something good. So yes, and so later on in as the weeks went by, I saw my father come in with a basket of kai. A lot of young people now don't know kai, the smallest fish in the sea, and they say it's very good for you to eat, but they say it eats a lot of rubbish from the seashore also. Long ago, there were a lot of seines that seined kai maybe every morning, and children ate a lot of kai. I did eat a lot of kai, at least 3 times a week. Kai Ibraf was right there in Portsmouth Lago. Mr. Divos Panti was the man who sinned. So back to Woodford Hill again. Sorry for all this deviation. So my father would bring up this basket of kai and they would just open them on the galvanized to dry. So he would go out again and do something. Maybe he worked somewhere, and he used that bicycle to either push that basket of material through Hampstead and Benz and Anzime, Dodan to Portsmouth to buy the kai, because that's where he could buy kai. The kai was sold in Portsmouth for 3p a basket, I understood. 3p a basket. And when it came and it was drying in Woodford Hill, my mom would sell it for 3p a cup. In those days, it was cup of oil, cup of kerosene, and even cup of kai. So that was Woodford Hill. A few, maybe months or years later, my dad moved to Portsmouth, and he put us in the corner of the street between Rodney Street and Bedford Street. That is just opposite the Roman Catholic school, St. John's School, and the Roman Catholics is a little right, little more east than the school. And that is where I grew up. Later, 3-4 years later, came a sister who is still alive and who has just gone on a plane yesterday. I just hope she's fine. That's my sister, you know. We grew hands in gloves. We grew. I was older, but she was brighter. So when I went to school, she came to school also. So we are in Portsmouth now. And I went to school in Portsmouth, to a school they call Rosabelle School. Rosabelle Israel, was a lady whose parents' premises is as you turn that corner in front of Borough Square to come to Roseau, to go to Glanvilla for that matter. Those houses on the right side were the Israels, and that's where her parents were. And that school we're talking about was right at the Portsmouth gas station, the one which is just close to the, at present it is the office of the Dawa, not Dawa School, but Domlec, the Domlec office. So that is where that school was. It was a tall building, 2 stories if you want, but all the material wood, round wood, to the height of the building, and there was a step and a floor. I cannot remember. There might have been two benches up there. What I can remember though is at the school in the morning, Teacher Roosevelt would come in and she would slap children on the bottom. Reason I never understood if that was what school was at the time, or that is what was there to keep you quiet or to shut you up. I don't know what that was for. But I remember Sister Pat. Sister Pat is Pat Douglas. She became a nun, and she had an accident in Barbados. Some maybe 10
What was she to RBD?
RBD's daughter.
RBD's daughter.
Yeah. She had an accident some 10 years ago. She had cancer, but the accident is what killed her. She didn't die from cancer. So we were seated in our benches, and Teacher Rosabelle came, turned me over, slapped me on the bottom, turned her over, did the same thing, and we sat again. And we were just watching, say, what is that for? Anyway, the level of her teaching was such that when we left there, we didn't go to Standard 1, Standard 2, or Standard 3, or ABC. That might have covered a lot of classes for the future school. So the next school I had to go to was the school which was the Portsmouth Government School. And that time it was situated right where you see the Portsmouth Credit Union Hall is. It was a big wooden building there, and that was the Portsmouth Government School. We didn't worry to go to school because that same year, I think it was 1956, that same year, the Portsmouth Government School on the hill was opened. So that's where we went to school. And I went straight to class 3 in a teacher's class whose name was Teacher Grace. And there was Teacher Savrin, who is the aunt of the ex-presidential Savrin, who was the teacher of the home economics class, which was in the room on the veranda of that school. On that veranda now is where they trained us for scholarship classes. And present at the time was Derek Garraway, still alive, Jude Watty, passed on. He lived, the last place he lived was Soufriere, and it might have been the hurricane that surprised him or shocked him too badly because the waves were breaking on the roof of his house. And he maybe got too scared. He got probably a heart attack and he died. And there was Eudora Joseph. She drowned on a boat. She was on a boat with her husband, and the boat sank and she drowned. That is 3. And that's 3. There was somebody else who I don't recall right now. And I'm sorry about the brain is getting old. So so we were there, and we did the scholarship class.
Was it the common entrance then, or it was just a scholarship
It was
class?
something, but you had to pay $8 school fee. $8 school fee. And I will get to that in a while. So we went there. In those days, the school was called something, there was some special school. And some people like Beatrice Boland, not Eardley, the big Castor brother from Marigot, Ernestine Dicray, who is the sister of Mrs. Flossie Joseph, and Ina Francois, and Mona Farrell. I can remember those people. They were stars, big, huge people, and they came to school at Portsmouth for that special. Evans Dodds, who became a minister. Those were the people at the school that I can remember at the time. Anyway, we did that. We did our work, did our exams, and we all went to our pupils to go to Roseau. Okay,
So you actually passed that scholarship class, and then from there you head to Roseau.
I think Vincent Robinson was part of that too, because Vincent Robinson's father was the inspector of schools, and Vincent Robinson went to school in Portsmouth also. Edgar Robinson was a younger guy, a much smaller guy than us at the time. So here we are, and we have to go to Roseau. My father was such an intelligent guy. I don't know. He probably knew that I would pass the exams, and he had taken me to Roseau 3 or 4 times to teach me how to get from the Roseau Wharf to high school by my aunt, Viola Payne, where we would live. So he took me to Roseau on this boat. The boat there was Lady Catherine, there was the Irish.
And you're talking about during those days, that's the only way you could reach to Roseau.
There were absolutely no roads. No roads.
And about what year you're referring to?
I'm talking about coming to school now. That's 1958.
1958.
So around 1957, Daddy took me to Roseau, maybe 4 or 5 times on this boat. On this boat, if you wanted to go to Roseau, you'd have to go and sit just where there's a fish market now in Portsmouth. You have to sit or stand there. And this tall, elegant gentleman, Mr. Johnson had some sons. Michael was a pilot. He passed. And there is Desmond still there, who I believe worked on the Gis boat for some time. So Mr. Johnson would come and stand there maybe 4:30 in the morning, and I don't know. I believe when he wanted you to travel, he would beckon you to come across. He put out his tall hands and he say, "You come." So my father would go. He would give him a piece of paper. I don't know what was the money like. It might have been 3 shillings maybe in those days. I don't think we had come to dollars yet. And then from there you'd walk to Borough Square to board the little boat. And the little boat had 2 benches on the side, and from there I could see inside the engine room because the boat wasn't tall, and you could see the engine room. And there was this gentleman down there with a big oil can doing something. I was wondering, what is he part of the engine, or is the oil can part of the engine? But later, after a few trips to Roseau, I found out that he was oiling it up. So I began to realize that engine was an engine you had to oil the valves. The valves, I learned that. You had to oil the valves by hand, and he would oil it throughout the 2 or 3 hours to Roseau. Okay, so we are
Now in secondary school, you went to the grammar school.
yeah, going to grammar school. So I reach Roseau now, and I'm on the wharf. So Daddy shows us the men who use their carts to carry heavier boxes than you could carry in your hands. I could carry my suitcase and my sister's suitcase. My sister always had a lot of shoes.
But where would the boat dock? Would it be at the ferry terminal there?
No. The Roseau Wharf was the big wharf just opposite where the customs is now in Roseau.
Yeah.
Or where
that's not where the ferry terminal is. Where,
somewhere there, but
yes.
it was a big wharf outside there.
Going out, yeah.
Right.
That's where the vessels used to normally dock.
Right. Okay, so we would
60s.
come there, and I remember the gentleman's name was a tall gentleman who would carry my box. That
So
I
they would
couldn't
have
carry.
guys now, and what sort of transportation they would use to carry
No,
whatever load you had?
no, just the carts. The
Yeah.
carts.
The carts.
2-wheel carts. Some carts had rubber wheels. Some carts had steel wheels.
And those were your transportation to bring away in Roseau.
to bring the cargo, and we would walk with our grips, and we walk to High Street. That is the street from the High Court going in there, inside there. And so that was coming to Roseau to school. We could not go down to see our parents or people during the week. We had to wait until the end of term. So we would live in Roseau maybe 3 months. Anything that happened to you in Roseau, there were no telephones, and you had to stay there and sort out whatever you could. In the way however you could make it, you were going to try and make it.
Can you recall any of your schoolmates during those days?
Oh yes. My schoolmates in those days were always the cream of the crop. I'd never gone to second form, I can remember. I went to third form. There was Edison James. We sat on the same bench for years, and Edison James became the Prime Minister of Dominica with not too much fight. He didn't have to fight for too many years to achieve that, because he was always a guy who was prepared for the storm, prepared for the fight. And so there was Edison James, the same Derek Garrett, the same Jude Watty, Dr. Kelsick, Merlin Kelsick. There was Dr. Edmond Dal Soldaru. There was Dr. from Soufriere. He lives at Goodwill. Doc, call me and tell me your name, I forget. And
Peter Dewis messaged me this morning and told me that you all went to school together.
Peter
Dewis.
Yeah.
Also Norman Later.
Yeah, Norman Later. Yeah, I told you the cream of the crop. Norman Later, Julius Corriett. Father Eustace Thomas.
Yeah,
also. He's the guy that used to stand on the bench. And Little Williams, dentist. I don't know if he's still alive. I haven't heard of him. But La Plaine. Yeah. Eddie Lambert. Did I call Eddie Lambert?
Now you call it Eddie Lambert.
Eddie Lambert. Norman.
That's a dream team, man. You were surrounded by.
Yeah. Butch was Irvin Schillingford. Vincent Robinson, I call that name already in Portsmouth, and Vincent Robinson was in Roseau also, in school also. We had Mr. Marville, a teacher from Barbados. We had Mr. Laville from Portsmouth. He ended up in St. Lucia, I think. And our masters, the first master was Mr. Friday. I can't remember, he was from Grenada. And we had Mr. Crick. We had Emmanuel Parillon too. Did I call his name?
No.
Emmanuel Parillon was a very good guy in Latin. In those days, we did Latin, and we had to write Latin comprehension. So I can still remember a little Latin. Kenneth Josie from Portsmouth always used to practice us with that Latin. And Arthur James was a mathematical stalwart. He's still alive. I visit him a lot of mornings when I walk. And he has a problem with his eye. I'm beginning to have problem with my eye also.
So at what point you began to feel that you had that particular love for boats and even making boats?
Well, maybe I jumped the gun too fast there, because I had already built my first boat before I came to school in Roseau.
Tell us about that first boat.
Yeah, okay. My father told me that, okay, we went back to Portsmouth. He opened a little shop and he built a house in Glenville, somewhere where they sell food now. There used to be a big mango tree there. So he built this house there and he built a shop. And he thinks that all his children should be independent. He built a shop and put my sister in it. My sister is still alive, a little older than me, and she took care of that shop. He also built it in such a way that his sister and his niece could live in the same building, maybe as security for the building, and to take care of his shop. And my responsibility was to replenish that shop with condensed milk, sardines, smoked herring, some bags of weighed flour or sugar, a few gallons of oil and kerosene, things that a child could carry, you know. And so I'd have to carry that from the shop by the church to Glenville. Of course, going to Glenville, I didn't negotiate with some guys that didn't want to cross the Indian River Bridge. And I remember two of them named Ajiji, who was one of the guys. All these guys that passed already. Errol. Errol is a guy who was heartless and he liked to use dynamites. He died when he put a dynamite in the sea and slid on a stone and fell on the dynamite. So he was dying with no face. The dynamite had blown all his face away, but his mouth could still talk. I don't know how that was happening, but and he passed away. Incidentally, some months ago, I met a lady and gave her a drop, and she told me she was his daughter. Okay, so here am I. Okay,
In the
with
shop.
all these pieces of cardboard boxes that it not cardboard, little wooden smoke herring and codfish boxes. I put them under this shop, and I said I'll have to find something to do with them. Maybe after a few months or maybe a whole year, I said I'm going to build a boat under the shop. And Daddy said, yes, do what you want, but remember, you cannot take my tools. You shouldn't take my tools. I still found a way to steal maybe a saw and a hammer and some nails and got some wood and started building this boat. I had put the boat together maybe within a year and a half, maybe 2 years or more. And came the time to caulk the boat so that it wouldn't leak. At least I would be able to take a ride in it. And of course, no money, so we had nothing to buy caulking stuff or stuff to make potty. So I cut the tree, the skin of the tree of the breadfruit tree. And you know, everybody know when more children don't know that now, they don't even know breadfruit trees. But that white milk that comes down from it, after time it gets brownish and hard. So I would pass back by that breadfruit tree and pick out all these pieces of white stuff that had gotten hard and actually chewed that stuff until it became gluey. And with that, I caulked the boat. That may be a reason why I never got stomach trouble so far, because that must have relined my stomach. And yeah, so I must have chewed them for a few months to get enough stuff to caulk the boat. The boat did float. We launched in the sea. I could neither row nor swim, but I had a little friend. His father was from Anguilla. His name was Sonny Ferrara, and he could swim and he could row. So he rowed me from Glenville to Portsmouth in this little boat. Both of us in it. We passed under the wharf in Portsmouth, so you must have known the size. It might have been between 5 and 8 feet long, and maybe 3 feet wide. But we went there. We went safely, and I put it ashore there. All the old seamen and captains and boat builders came to visit it, and they all remarked, you know, that this little guy is a crazy guy, and we have to look out for him. So that was before I went to school in Roseau. Another of my responsibilities I left out a part there. I have to go back to it. My father also wanted to do something he saw that was absolutely necessary, to build an oven to bake bread. My mother was a good cake maker. So my father had built a dugout canoe, and he had it in the Indian River. At a spot high up in the river, which is directly adjacent to the park, the the Benjamin's Park, the top part of the park. There's still the little track there you can just walk across to the Indian River, and that is where his little dugout canoe was. And he would take me on that canoe with him, row right across the harbor to the Cabrits. That was just after the war. So at the Cabrits, there were a lot of clay bricks, and we would pick up some clay bricks. I could probably carry 1 or 2 clay bricks, and he would carry 1 or 2 bags, put back in the canoe, and row right across to that area. Pick them up and walk the hill to Zikak at an area where he proposed to build his oven, where he did build his oven. The cakes my mother made at the time cost 1 cent, and the bread was a 2-pence bread. You could just pull it apart, and it was 1 penny bread each time.
Pecasse.
Okay, so a lot of children now don't know halfpennies and pennies, but if you're from that time, you would have seen what a halfpenny and a penny
A
is.
halfpenny would be 1 cent and a penny would be 2 cents.
Yes, right. My responsibility now was to take that money to the bank. And a little piece of history, the bank, Barclays Bank at the time, you'll see a little wooden building just at the top of the Portsmouth Jetty. That is the jetty close in Borough Square. That was the bank, the Barclays Bank in the 50s and the 60s. That was the Barclays Bank. After I had carried those halfpennies, that money to the bank a few times, I decided, no, it was a little too weighty. So I built a little truck also, so I could pull behind me with that maybe $10 or whatever was in it.
What happened to that first boat you built out of the...
Honestly, the men must have had it in that big shed as a historical piece. I had never gone back there again. In fact, I never went back there again up to now, until they destroyed the building when they were putting the fisheries project. So that it just stayed there. Yeah.
At what stage you actually got involved into actually captaining and building your boat now for travel?
Okay, it's incidentally, I don't know if it was hereditary or not, I seem to have been a very gifted guy because I was always a captain.
You were born a captain.
I don't know if I was born a captain, but the first person who caused me to steer a boat was Captain George Henry. You go to Portsmouth, sorry, you'll see him. He has lost one of his hands, but he used to captain the Emilia M, which was belonging to Mr. Kenzie Magloy. The M stands for Magloy. And it was a boat with the bow, wrong bow. And whenever you had a boat, so they will tell you that the boat cannot sail because the bow is looking at the stern. Incidentally, the first lighter, you will have known that when Foley and Bands did the banana industry, bananas were carried from Longhouse, from the shed, which is where Lau hosts the Dexter office and the Dexter storeroom. There were 2 long wooden sheds there where the bananas were selected. That time, bananas were selected in bunches, and they were shipped in bunches. So ladies used to carry them from there to the wharf. If you go to the wharf in Portsmouth now and you look on both sides of the wharf, you will see some huge pieces of wood with concrete around them. That is the foundation or the footing of the old-time wharves. The old-time wharves were built with just normal wood, gummy wood, and they sharpen them. And men would drive this wood into the sand. They call these men pile drivers. They were just like compressors. They had a huge piece of wood with a piece of steel around both ends, so it was split open, and they would knock that pile with that wood. The 2 men remarkable for doing that was Papi Jan at Lagon and Fuela at Granville. Huge fellas, big arms, big calves, and they could drive piles like what you see the compressors doing today to build the walls. So that the women would carry those bunches of bananas by head to the lighters, and the lighters would take it. They would be rowed to the ship that would take the bananas to England. I think I used to remember one or two of the names of the ship. Bronze Bottle and Bronze Holm, I think, were the names of the ships or two of the ships in those days. Incidentally, my grandfather in Wesley, who had never been to sea, and that is where I believe the sea gift came from. He built the first lighter that would do that kind of work, and that lighter was called the Pumpkin. Steady Robin built that right on the hill at Wesley, and that was one of the first means of transportation from Wesley to Roseau. And his boys, he had many boys. Grenfell, Robin, Franco, I forget Franco's name, William, which other boy? I don't remember which other boy now. But they would row and sail from Wesley to Roseau, passing either through La Plaine and Granby or Portsmouth. And he would stand on the hill at Wesley and depict to them, boys, today don't go Granby way. It's going to be rain. It's going to be a very bad weather. Pass Portsmouth way, we'd have a good sail, and so on. And they would obey him. But he himself had never gone to sea. He would build boats, tell the boys how to handle the boat and how to go to sea, what weather to choose, but he never went to sea himself. That was my grandfather. Okay, so we have.
We're going to know your first boat you used to actually.
Okay,
travel.
so I left school now, and I had seen a beautiful lady on the truck going to Portsmouth. You know, trucks were the buses in those days. And the same gentleman I must have mentioned a little earlier, Mr. Stephen Savran, he had two trucks. One 1-ton Bedford, the old Bedford, the wrong face. 722 was the number. And then he got a 3-ton Bedford, 1165. Lady Perpetual was the first one. And I don't remember the second one. No. And he would go to Roseau, and his main cargo was a few hundred cases of soft drinks. In those days, was the big Fanta bottle and the juicy bottle. I don't think Coke had come yet. Yeah, and we traveled on that truck to go on holidays. Sometimes on the weekend, sometimes when the road was opened. And I had seen that lady in Pont-Cassé, and not incidentally, fruitfully, some years afterwards, we got married. She was a powerful lady, make me remember my mother, very, very strong, would have a cutlass in one hand, a pair of boots in her feet, and a bunch of banana on her head, and a single banana bunch on the other hand, coming down the hill in Pont-Cassé to where they would clean the bananas to prepare them for shipping. And she had some subjects like myself. I think she might have had, maybe, I don't know, I had English, history, and others. But she might have had another subject, and she came to Portsmouth, and the house where she lived is still there, and she got a job. We continued speaking because I loved her, we had loved each other. And she got a job to teach. I maybe could have been a teacher also, but the salary was funny. It was $62.58 per month. And I just, I thought that was an impossibility. I couldn't work.
You couldn't survive on $62.
I maybe could survive. I didn't know, and I didn't want to know. I wanted to know that I didn't work to get a salary at the end of the month, or the end of 4 weeks. I would prefer to touch something every 2 days or so. But how would I do that? So whilst I went to school, I visited garages. So before I left school, I was already a mechanic just by watching. I watched Eric Shillingford adjust gearboxes and differentials. He had a little meter putting on the crown wheel, between the crown wheel and the. I forget the name of this. Anyway, of the differential, and he adjusted the differential, bring it up or further back from the thing. So I saw that. I saw Emery Dossett doing the Bedford engines. I tried to do a Bedford engine as soon as I left because a guy's crankshaft broke. But I never because I never held the parts myself, I didn't realize that all bearings were in pairs, main bearings and connector rod bearings. They were in pairs, and I mixed up the main bearings, so the engine was overheating. And I think it was he himself that corrected it sometime after. But the engine worked very well, and so on. Also, I used to go to Maho because at that time, on the weekend, because you didn't go home, you just found somebody in you. And I had known a gentleman from Wesley. He was a telemark. He drove a truck from St. Joseph, 181. It belonged to a recent inspector of police. This was a Joseph. His brother also was one of the customs officers. Collins? Something so. Yeah. So I would go to take a ride with him on some weekends. And then I noticed there was this gentleman around Maho. And that is the building just after you pass the credit union house in Maho, just across the road there. And his name, the memory not good today. And so he used to do generators and starters. And I went there and just looked, and he encouraged me to come. And I could fix a generator and a starter, even whilst I was still going to school. So that is how I began to be a mechanic. When I left school now, I had told him that I'm leaving school. I'm going back to Portsmouth. And I told him one day I'll come to ask you for a piece of a truck. Give me a piece of a truck, and I will put it together and make a truck. I told my daddy I was going to get a truck. I'm going to build a truck. And in those days, I had fellas like Yuri, who I see in Portsmouth now, Jackie, us cousin Francis. He has his own bus. We were friends from that time. Shadrach and Meshach came some time after. I had some Shillington boys from Newtown who did painting and bodyworking, and we did a lot of mechanic work around that time, maybe a little later on. So it was that time I began building a boat in my mother's yard. I couldn't build the boat by the wharf. It would be much easier to put it in the sea. You'll be just 10 feet from the sea. But then, you had to be careful because it would never be built. If you build the boat by the bay, the old boat builders would come there every day and to correct you. But to correct you in those days, they would criticize you and just break down your moral for doing what you wanted to do. So I built that boat in my mother's yard. It was 20 feet long. I had built the boat. I can't remember how I planked it though. And I think the gentlemen like Mr. Ravino, Rome, Mr. Azil, and Mr. Bell, and Kabi. Kabi's still alive. I saw his brother last week from Cottage and Kokoye. Came and they helped me to caulk it and get it ready for the sea. But then it wasn't a sailboat, it was a motorboat. And of course, I couldn't buy any engine. And there was once a custom officer also, control of custom, Mr. James from Zikak. He had a BMC car, stick, little green engine. And that car had broken down in Tatan. It was given to a Thomas guy who became my pupil after. Anyway, who became... so I took the engine from that car and put in that boat. My brother reminded me about it the other day, my brother in the States, Clement. He said, remember when you put that engine in the boat? That same gentleman who used to be on the launch going to Roseau, I brought him to see, what I was doing, and he told me, well, boy, you made a try, but it's crazy because that will never work, that will just fly out and it's going to sink the boat and fellas might get drowned. So, I was a little scared, but I didn't stop. And I built the boat because my French friends who came to Portsmouth on a little sports boat they had some engine trouble. Now, Avril was more friendly than myself. Remember, I said I'm not taking any praise for myself, but as much praise for my life, early life, goes to Avril and Cyril, Bernard Avril and Cyril Hyacinth. You know, we did all these things together. So we went and we fixed that engine for our French partners, and we became very good friends. So I said that one day I'm going to take my boat to Martinique. I told my mother that I will attempt to go to Martinique with the boat, and that was the worst thing I ever did. My mother must have cried for a whole month and a half. Oh, my son is going to die. He doesn't know about sea, and he's going to go to Martinique with a boat. So she tells me anytime I go with the boat, make sure I have some old seamen with me. I say, okay, mommy. Okay, mommy. So one day I had been asking my friend also. He's still at Zikak. His name is Charles. He's a Martinican. He lives at Chance there now. Always to take me to Martinique with him because he's from there and he maybe know there well. And he always told me to come on a Saturday morning. I must have gone 20 Saturdays. In the end, I started calling him Saturday. He never came with me. So I decided to leave one day, my little engine, little boat, and go to Martinique. And my accompaniment was Baines Montif, Fuela. So two of us went to Martinique. We went to Martinique and we arrived in Martinique. I can't remember how I alerted my friends that I was in Martinique, but they came. And man, they almost died to see me come to Martinique on that boat with a motorcar engine in it. You know, so crazy. Immediately, they made arrangement with a dry dock and paid the dry dock to put that boat ashore for me. And they gave me a red Volvo Penta gasoline engine and the stern drive. Gave me tools and put me on the dock and tell me to install that engine on the dry dock. Within 10 days, a week and a half, Baines and I had installed the engine, and we now had a little car, a gasoline, but it was gasoline engine, Volvo Penta. And incidentally, in those days, you know, you were so young and crazy. We never tried it out, you know. We put it in the water, and after a week or so, we returned to Dominica with this boat as a motor car instead of
on water.
Oh yeah, we had a little steering wheel, but I built a little bridge over it so that we could do that. I used that boat though to do Guadeloupe, Basse, for Miss Antilla and Altina George. I might have made 4 or 5 trips. It was $80 a trip at the time. And we could make Guadeloupe in Basse in 2 hours. In 2 hours, so she was pretty fast. She would do 8-9 knots. So automatically I began reading and learning to go somewhere. Maybe not navigating, but take a boat to a port. I did that.
Can you recall as we speak how many boats you have physically built?
Okay, we have maybe 4 or 5 of them, wooden, from 20 feet long to 45 feet long.
And install engine, everything.
Well, we became famous in installing engines. Because we couldn't buy engines, we installed a lot of truck engines. We had come to know Martinique, but let me go in stages before I jump too far. Yeah, that boat, I gave it to two men to go to Guadeloupe nearly every week. At $80, it was $20 for the boat, $20 for me, and $20 each for each of the men. So it was $20, $40, $60, $80. 20 for the boat, 20 each man. It was $20 for gasoline. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, it was $80. One day I decided to dock the boat. So I took it close to the shore, slung it around with a nice, huge line. A line is a roper. And then tied it on all my trucks and pulled it with the truck. Not bearing in mind, maybe not careless, not sensible enough that it was gasoline and it had a battery inside. The battery might have come and hit the glass bowl. You know, that engine had a glass bowl like your vehicle, and broke the glass bowl and spilled some gasoline inside there and caught it afire. it was just close to where Vios is. Just looking at the school where my wife taught. I don't think we were not yet married. And the boat burnt right there that day.
So you lost that boat?
Yeah,
Totally.
right there.
Mhm.
Right there that day. So my friends came, Cyril, of course, Stretch is Fitzroy. He's a businessman now. And we were thinking what else to do. So I said, boys, all we can do is build another boat, you know. So get the truck and let's go and look for wood. So we went to Londonderry to Mr. Lionel Laville, Mr. Laville, and Mr. Reginald Amo. Asked them if we could have some wood and so on. What you want wood to do? I want to build a boat. What do you know about boat? Well, we had a boat, but it just burned. Well, maybe not even finished burning yet, but we have to work. So he said, "Boy, you all have some craziness now, but go ahead. Any wood you see, just take." So he gave us wood. So we cut trees and brought down the wood and framed that boat again in my mother's yard. Incidentally, I have a copy of that boat. I don't have a copy of all the boats I built, but I have a copy of this boat.
That was the second boat.
Yeah, which I can show you. Yeah.
That's for Facebook.
This is it.
That's all for Facebook.
You can see some
Facebook.
men standing on the top of it there.
Yeah.
Where we're going to launch it, and
Some our Facebook viewers.
Yeah. Some have passed into eternity.
Mm-hmm.
But some, like Merrill Wallace, still alive. Carlton Powell, still alive. Jim Summers passed. Let me remind myself. Roosevelt Thomas passed. James Summers passed. My brother Clem is there. I am right there. I don't know if my brother Fletcher is there.
But some of the guys who really helped you with this second boat, and you would have gone all throughout the French Antilles with this boat, Martinique and Guadeloupe.
Oh yes, oh yeah. No, we went everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
How far you went with the second boat?
Maybe Saint Lucia, you know.
Saint Lucia.
Yeah.
At what point?
At Montserrat.
At what point you got the humility?
No, I got the humility after Hurricane David. I didn't get the humility. I got 300 tons of steel in the toilet just close to the market. There was a toilet there. And when Hurricane David was subsiding, there were still very huge waves. So the crew on board maybe couldn't handle the boat in that weather. And the boat came right ashore there. It was laden with flour at the time. People offloaded it with the flour. And of course, the owners at the time, the owner was the Attorney General of St. Vincent. His name was Arthur, or is, I don't know if he's dead now, Arthur Williams. He came with many boats, at least 5. Big trawlers, big tugs if you want, big ships, Little Stephen, Richard Bordeaux. The trawler's name I can't quite remember. They tried to remove that boat and they wouldn't move it. So did I go to St. Vincent? I say, Mr. Arthur, oh yes, he had a boat named Dylan also, or Dylan. Mr. Arthur, I want to buy the boat from you. He said, boy, you crazy man, how you go buy the boat? You see the efforts I made to take it out, you never move? I say, yes, Mr. Arthur, you tried to move Dominica, but I'm not going to move Dominica. But you're a young boy, hush him out. I said, no, I'm going to move the boat, not Dominica. So he told me he wanted $50,000 for that boat. But I had no money because I had just lost, but I don't have those pictures, 2 vessels. One of those was the Yolanda Star. It was a 45-foot best vessel. We built this one, Stretch, Fitzroy and I built this one from the specs of that vessel. And we called it the Independence 1.
I remember Independence 1.
That was 1978.
Yeah, I remember the Independence 1 used to come at the port.
Right. So we built that. Every single board on that was sewn by hand. We had no money to buy board and so, and we fiberglass the bottom. So, and that fiberglass never broke, you know. And
you yourself fiberglass the bottom?
We ourselves fiberglass the bottom. We dive, slide down under the boat and fiberglass the whole boat. So in that boat never leaked. And we powered it we powered it with old truck engines we got in Martinique. We would go to Martinique and walk the ridge or drive on cars and see an old truck and just find out who the owner was. And the Martinique people would say, "Viens combien là?" Oui. Ça, vous pouvez faire ça. Mais si fait vous plaisir quand même, tirer moteur là, qu'on nous jette ça, nous besoin jeter. So we would, I cannot remember how we lifted those engines, you know, because we didn't have any heavy
Cranes or
anything. But we lifted those engines from the trucks. We must have done that four or five times, and put them in the boat and take them to Dominica and install them in the vessel. And went, boy, Cyril went to Barbados with Independence One. They never really broke down per se, that I know of. He went to St. Martin. He might have gone to Tola too. And we just became sailors. Maybe I jumped the gun a little bit there. During that Lawiden story, I had friends like Pantier. Oh, I'm forgetting all my boys' name this morning. Pantier, he went to the States the other day. He's married to Esther Cathy. We were building a boat, and then we say, "But how are we going to drive it? We have no engine." But Geese Industries was just closing down Woodford Hill, and they had a lot of old engines, old Jeeps, old trucks, and so on.
So you take these old vehicles and assemble into one engine and put it on.
No, we just went up there, and Geese would neither sell, give, nor borrow any of his equipment. They would dig a big hole and cover the material in them.
Mm-hmm.
So
how you recovered that?
Man, you have to work. How can I forget my friend name now? Pantier. Somebody tell me Pantier name now. Young Pantier, you must be listening. Anyway, we went up there and dug out 2 engines. We had a very good friend who was a mechanic there. He passed also the other day. Hillier Benjamin. You know, he was always a good mechanic. And Stephen Prince, still at Zikak. I often visit Stephen Prince. His home is just the second house from the hospital on the left side. Because we had no lathe tools. But man, we would use a saw, a hammer, and cold chisel to make anything. We made shapes for the propellers of the boat when we had propellers.
You yourself did all this.
And not only me myself, I had policemen working with me. There's a policeman named Constance. He was really hacksaw man. He could assist to shape the end of a shaft to taper it so we could put the prop. Of course, they never spun through, but they always worked for us. We never broke down with them. When we could adjust them and get them properly done, they lift tools by Gray, Cowboy Maho in Public Works, we got that done. But we did all the things. Okay, back to Lawiden now. Lawiden is ready to be launched, and how are you going to launch it? You haven't got a thing. But Altina had a trolley. She would carry her own load on, maybe around 6 feet long, 3 feet wide, and four wheels under it. And we would put that under it and organize some kind of gadget behind there and use my truck to tow it to the wharf. Not to the wharf, by the market we put in the sea. And we put those, we cleaned and washed and prepared and ground the valves and washed the bearings of those 2 Land Rover diesel engines and made some pieces with metal and so to connect it to the stern drive. And we put those 2 engines on the Lawiden and had them going. 2 diesel Land Rover Jeep engines, maybe 50 years old, doesn't matter. And we organized that boat and we went to Guadeloupe every Sunday night after church for a number of years.
We have to come back like we promised because we have to stop for the news It's now 12 o'clock.
Wow, already?
Yes, I know you just warmed up, but we must stop for the news. So we will take it when we come back next Friday. From there and go on to humility, because we want to also later, actually deal with the actual voyages, because we know that you took vessels from Europe
Yeah.
across the Atlantic to
Yeah.
Dominica,
Yeah.
and how we can look at the industry, the boating industry in Dominica. But we must stop now because the news is coming up.
Okay.
Once again, we just hope that the information was loud and clear, because what we try to do is to connect the history, connect us to what. Because there's a Dominican actually making boats, putting the engine together. And we just wanted our listeners globally to recognize the work that you have done.
Yeah.
So we'll come back next, if God willing, to continue the story.
Okay.
But so far, so good. But we have to make a stop for the news major. Thank you very much, Mr. Wade. Until next week, Friday. Prince Wadix, may God bless you, and may God bless Dominica. The news major comes up next.
Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix. Pa pou an wete ba moun plen la yon manj a kite la vi. Apresye sa yo ka fe kon yo apami nou jodi. La se mouve vale pie non nou ka konsipe moun ebi.